Hello all, hello patrons, and welcome to your reading. Thank you for trusting me to read your cards again. So for this reading, we're doing the topic of what to expect next in your career, or what to expect in your career in general. So we have three groups. We have group 1, group 2, and group 3. 1, 2, 3. So, yeah, this is general career messages. That's what I'm intending. So you can take your time, pick whichever group is calling you, 1, 2, or 3, and I will see you at your group. So let's get started. So we're going to get started with group 1 first. What to expect in your career. So let's look at the tea leaf cards first, and then we'll pull some tarot and see what comes up. We've got January, kite, so vacation or holiday. And we've got owl, good advice from a wise person. So January is obviously important. I wonder if the message that I'm getting is that it doesn't feel like a normal vacation. It doesn't feel like a normal time off. With this vacation card, what it feels like, it's kind of like an extended, the word that came to mind was sabbatical. You know the way some people take a sabbatical. That's the word that came to mind. I'm getting also in January you could be switching careers, switching what you do in general, and maybe that's why you decide to take this break, because you'll just be kind of like, I need to reassess, I need to think. The way that the energy is flowing for me is that you're coming this year, you're concluding a certain path of your journey when it comes to your career. You're done in a certain area, you're done with a certain aspect of your career, and it's likely for some of you you'll never come back to this again, even if you will use it in the future. And for others of you, if you do come back to this, whatever you're doing right now, if you're looking at this reading and you're like, there's no way, like, I want to do what I'm doing right now forever, this is probably not your reading, because I'm getting this year you're concluding something. You may even notice that this year began with you deciding to conclude something in your career, and it's going to finish up with you concluding it. And next January, so like January 2024, it genuinely feels like you're on a new career path. But I think at first you're going to take some time off. And this good advice card from good advice from a wise person does make me think that maybe you are going to get some really good advice either towards the end of this year or beginning of next year that is going to kind of shift your perspective and kind of ease you a bit. There's this feeling of you just being like, you know what, that makes me feel like I don't need to stress as much as I've been stressing. I feel like this group is really for those of you that are looking for a career shift, or you can at least feel like that's what you're heading towards, even if you're looking at it being like, that's not what I would love. Like, maybe you're even kind of like, oh, I can feel like I'm moving towards a career shift, but like I'm scared and I'm resistant to it. I would say watch this group still. The moon, this feels like it's like your subconscious is moving you towards a change. I'm getting your higher self is moving you towards a certain change within your career. I actually feel like the more rest you can have between now and next year, in whatever way possible. Now, group one, obviously, I understand we all have our own limitations that are different. For some people, it might be a possibility. For others, not at all. But your guides, what I'm getting is your guides want you to assess very honestly and very openly for yourself how much time off you could possibly afford or take for yourself, and do it. Because the moon card represents rest as well, mental rest, sleep. In a way, your guides don't want you thinking about your career too much. It's more like they want you to wrap up whatever you've been doing in your career for the past like 5 years or so, maybe even 10 years for some of you. You know? Because you're moving on a different path, and this new journey is going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. I think there will be people who will support you with advice. I think your guides, they're always trying to communicate to you that this is going to be okay. But I think this year you're wrapping up. And you got 3 major arcana. I'm getting a lot of fear around this. Look at these. Look at these bad boys. Got the moon, the devil, and the hermit. There's a lot of fear. I actually think part of your path is to face some career fears. Is to face some financial fears. I think that's gonna, but it's not so much about the financial aspect. It actually feels more connected to something to do with work fears. Like how you're supposed to work, what constitutes being hardworking, what constitutes being a good worker, being a productive member of society is what I heard as well. It's like, am I a productive member of society? And I feel like you're going to be challenged to look at it from a perspective, what if I'm not? Does that make me less worthy? I know this may not be very helpful, but I feel like if anyone here right now is struggling to get a job, in the first group that I've pulled for you here, there's a very important reason for that. Because you're not supposed to stay, like the jobs that you are looking for, the jobs that you are looking for, the jobs that you're tapping into, they're not even going to be relevant beginning of next year. Like you'll just be like, of course I didn't get those jobs because that's not even relevant to my path and how I'm moving, how my energy is moving overall. Some of you, if you're studying something or you studied something and you didn't end up using it for your path, it will be useful in the future. There's something about being reassured around that, but it's not in the way that you think. It's not in the way that you think. Whatever you went to study, you were supposed to study it, but it was supposed to serve something very different to what you think it was supposed to serve. You're going through a very important, like, I almost feel like your guides are saying you're supposed to be distant with your career. You know, like how people sometimes say, oh, my love life is basically non-existent. You're kind of supposed to be that with your career. Why don't we ever say, oh, my career life is basically non-existent? Why, like, I'm really getting that energy of why not embrace this sense of, I basically, my career life is non-existent. That's not something that figures. In fact, for this group, what's funny, and Jesus, you'd never hear these words come out of my mouth usually. This group is encouraged to focus on other parts of your life, like your love life, and be like all about your love life and your career being on completely on the back burner. But they're giving me that because that's something. It's funny because that's something that I've done the past year where my love life just back burner, literally like doesn't even exist. It's been all about community, about friends, about working on my career, but like I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means, to be honest. To be honest, not career. I guess like I don't know my path, whatever. But yeah, like my love life completely on the back burner. And I feel like for you, it's funny. You're supposed to put your what would life be like? I feel like your soul wants to know. There's something about your soul wanting to know what would life be like if career was on a back burner. If I was giving like 5% of my energy to my career and all of my other energy to other things, to my hobbies, to my love life, to my friends, to my family. But my career, it gets 5%, 10% max. What would happen? I feel like your soul is in that state, like having distance with your career. It kind of feels like you've almost given too much of your energy to your career at this point in your life, where you've given it too much thought, you've given it too much attention, to the point where you've spent yourself in a certain way. And your guides are saying, what if you gave it nothing? Good old nothing. What if you gave it absolutely nothing? And that might be a scary thought. And especially with the King of Pentacles, I think this is representing you. I don't think you're the kind of person who ever thought in terms of this is definitely not anyone who's ever thought like, oh, what if I just, didn't have a career? What if I was just, doing other things? What if I was just raising children? This is not that person. And I think you're not that person. You've never been that person. There's a very strong Capricorn and Virgo energy here. And they, out of all the zodiac signs, can fall into workaholism and perfectionism and all that kind of energy. I'm not saying you have to be a Capricorn or a Virgo, but there's a very strong energy here of embracing career not being at the forefront. Career, I almost, like, I don't know why, but they're showing me like a chart. I don't know if you want to do that. Actually, it kind of makes me want to do it for myself. Like, I might do that tonight when I'm journaling. But almost do out a chart and do like love, friends. Because I would even encourage you to look at like maybe the 12 houses, because then you could look the self, first house, second house. That could be, it's like resources and stuff, but it could be, you could decide what the categories are, but it could be like hobbies, interests, self, pets, my children, my family, my friends, romance, partnerships. And you can put those as a graph and decide how much of your energy you want to give to those things. And your guides are like, career, what if career was the last thing on that list? It's not even about like how much energy you spend on it. It's like, what if career was your last priority, is what I'm getting. How would your life look? And I mean, again, you feel free to reject this message, because I'm feeling some discomfort. As someone's watching this reading, I'm feeling some discomfort. Fair enough. I would too. But I also challenge you to look at it from this perspective, because I'm very strongly getting, like, what would it look like to put career as the last priority in your life? What would it look like to decentralize career from your life as a whole? and make it, you know, again, like to some people, like people who say, oh, my love life is basically non-existent, being like, my career life is basically non-existent. I'm focused on people, I'm focused on my love life, I'm focused on my friends, family. Or maybe you're like, I want to put 70% of my efforts into my hobbies. Like, that's going to be where I put all of my energy. And that doesn't mean that you don't work on your career, you don't work at all. But it just means energetically, intentionally, attention-wise. Because I think intention is energy. And to set your intentions on something, to put your intention to something, that takes a lot, right? So if career wasn't really something where you were directing a lot of intention towards, where would that intention go, and would it feed you more? I mean, that's what I'm getting here in this reading. But I feel like it's not for nothing. It's not, because I don't think this is a group where you're the kind of person who's, I mean, maybe you decentralize career from your life and you're like, actually, I fucking love this. My life has gotten 10 times better. I think it would get better. I think you would receive a lot of enlightenment, and I think a lot of healing would happen. Even with the discomfort, I'm getting like a lot of healing will happen. But I'm also getting, if you decided to centralize career again, or put career on the first, like as a priority again, which of course you will, have got the Emperor. You're someone who, I think even if you were to decentralize career for now, eventually you'd want it to be the focus of your life again. But I am seeing that it's almost like you kind of don't have a choice at this point in your life. Not because you're a bad career person or because you can't, like, you don't know. Your higher self knows, but you don't know where you are at whatever point you are in time right now. It's impossible for you to see where you're supposed to be moving with your career, because you're not supposed to be moving with your career. It's like, you know, when we're turning. So I'm kind of getting what they're showing me with the imagery is like, if you move forward, you're walking forward. But when you're turning, if, like, let's say you couldn't move your head, if you were turning for a good bit, well, like, so I'm sitting facing this way, and now I'm gonna turn this way for a good bit of my, oh my goodness, the camera was turning as well. That was such a smack. I'm sorry, baby. Oh, it's poor camera. Or my phone. For a good bit of when I'm turning, I'm not seeing where I'm actually turning to until I've turned and I've reached my destination, right? So you're at this turning point where you're not able to yet see what you're turning towards. And I think that's going to be closer to the beginning of next year. So I think that's all I have for you, group number 1. This is a very interesting reading for your career. But don't worry, you are a career person. Like, I think looking at this reading, I'm like, you know, decentralizing career from your life for the time being, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not something that you're going to like. Some of you, I think, could grow to like it, but you'll still be like, yeah, I grew to like it, but I miss being, like, all about my career. Fair enough. Fucking fair enough. That's who you are, you know? But it's just kind of, right now, you almost don't have a choice. You're not going to make, basically what I would say, and I hope this doesn't sound, I mean, maybe it sounds uncomfortable. You're not going to make big strides in your career until about next year. Is basically where, but not because, oh, like, boo, failure, not because of that. It's because there's nowhere to make strides in when you're turning towards something else. And while you're turning, you can't make the stride. Does that make sense? It's like they're showing me a straight line and you can make strides in a straight line. But when you're turning, you need to focus all your energy on the turn, the pivot. You're pivoting. So, and I feel like you need a lot of energy for that pivot. Because they're showing me like energetically, it's like, you know, we as people, like, we'll turn and it's nothing, right? To us, it's nothing. But then they're also showing me like, for a young person to turn, it's nothing, right? But for an old person to maybe turn, it does take a lot of their energy. So they're kind of showing me your like big higher self energy, and it's pivoting you. And to pivot you, it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of, it's not easy to pivot. It's not easy to turn. It's easier to move in a straight line. So you're just at the point of a pivot, and that's completely fine. You'll start making strides again. So they're saying treat it like a vacation from needing to think about career, even if it's unnatural, even if you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, so that's what I have for you, group number 1. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you. Thank you for supporting me on Patreon. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Okay, so we've got group 1 done. So we're moving on. Moving on to group 2. Group 2. I'm just, so I can find this video easier. I sometimes do weird things so that I can find the timestamps easier. Okay, group 2, let's get into your career messages. Group 1 was very interesting, so I'm excited to see what yours is like. So we've got problems to be resolved with Inkpot. Okay. We've got Tiger, doing something risky, taking a chance. And time to go out and have fun with grapes. And I'm liking, there's like this purple vibe that we have with the grapes and the ink, like this indigo. I don't know why that color like just stood out to me, like this purplish indigo kind of color. Maybe that's something that's relevant to you right now. Your guides for this group, honestly, they want you to have more fun in your career. It's like, they're kind of like, are you maybe, well, what they said to me is like, are you allergic to fun? That's what I heard in my head. It was like, are you allergic to fun? What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with you. Sorry. That's just like the energy that came through. It was like, are you allergic to fun? They're kind of saying like, why shouldn't your career be fun? And where are you maybe restricting fun in your career? Either because you think you're not allowed to have fun in your career, or because you are now moving towards things that give you joy in your career. Instead, you're picking the adult responsible thing. Your guides are kind of wanting you to get out of that. Like, I'm getting kind of like snap out of it. But they're not. I feel like group 2 very often is a bit sassy, but it's fine. I am just getting, they are kind of giving me this energy of you're making things too serious for yourself in some sort of way in your career right now. In maybe not everywhere, but just in certain aspects. In certain aspects, you could be making things a little bit too serious for yourself. Embrace the fun. And I'm even getting with this doing something risky, taking a chance. It doesn't have, it's like something that feels risky to you. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a massive risk. Doesn't mean it's a massive risk. They want you to do something out of the ordinary in your career. Like, this is so funny. Obviously, this is not professional career advice, but this is giving me the energy of like, Just quit the job that you've been doing for the last, however long, and just go and get a job. Like, I don't know, I'm getting like, get something that feels random. Like, get a job that feels random. Get a job that feels kind of odd. Like, God, I never thought I'd do it, but like, just do it for fun. Do it for shits and giggles. Especially if your career right now is not like in a high stakes sort of energy. Or just like if you have a business, like introducing that product that you've been kind of like, oh, I don't know if it'll sell. Like, I'm really excited about it, and I think like I have a lot of fun bringing that product in, but like I don't know if that's actually anyone. Just put it out there, Like, I'm kind of getting this kind of energy. Or if you've been writing something or you've been working on something, and you're like, I don't know how. I had a lot of fun with it, but I don't know how people will receive it. You're holding on to something. Especially for those of you that are creators, especially for those of you that have a business. I mean, you might even have like an idea for your business plan, or you might have an idea for how your business should go, and you're like, is that a little bit out there? Is that a little bit kind of crazy? Am I crazy? Like, oh my God, am I? You know what they're showing me? Do you know that meme where she's putting peas on her head and she's like this? And the caption is like, I love my friend, she's so crazy. And it's like, and you know how people were like, oh, it's not even that crazy, So it's like, I'm kind of getting, you may think that doing something, there's something that you're holding on to. Doing something, going out there, showing yourself off a little bit more in your career. Might even be like, maybe in your job you did something, you did a project and you want to like brag about it. And you're like, I don't know if that'd be crazy of me. You're like, it would be so crazy to do that. And your guys are like, that is not crazy. You need to do it. You'd be celebrated. For a lot of you, maybe it's something to do with something like creative, like a piece of work that you've done. Again, like something you've written, something you've created, you've drawn, you've painted, you've made a little short film. And you're like, oh, maybe it's a bit crazy for me to put it out there. Maybe it's a bit weird. Your guides are like, a lot less weird than you think. A lot less weird. It's time to put something out there. Put yourself out there. Because you'd be celebrated. I'm getting, especially, you've got a good group of friends or a good group, like a community around you that would support you fully. You're on the fence about something. You're on the fence about putting something out. And it feels like if you put this thing out, it really does feel to me like maybe a body of work, something creative that needs to be put out. Or it's like a business plan, a business model that you're like, is this weird for me to go with this business plan? No. It's actually the key to a lot of your problems. It's actually key to a lot of your issues. I'm also hearing it's a key to a lot of things that you don't fucking want to do. There's things that you're doing that you don't want to do. It brings me back to that energy of like, you're making your career less fun for yourself. I'm going to say something real controversial, group 2. You're the people who are supposed to have a really fun career. And maybe something in you doesn't connect with that. But you are. Maybe it's like, maybe you've been given some sort of programming by your dearest, I don't know, family, parents, society, that in order to have a career, it can't be fun. Or it can't be fun all the time, or most of the time. Nothing is fun all the time. Okay, nothing is fun all the time. Most of the time. Your career is supposed to be fun like 90% of the time. And I feel like, feeling into the energy of this reading, it's kind of like, what would you give the percentage of fun that you have in your career currently? They really want you to take a risk on something, but it's not. They're like, it's a risk to you. We can see that it's not even a risk. They're like, it's not even a fucking risk, but it'll feel like a risk to you. It's fine. It'll feel like a risk to you. It's not even a risk, but it's like something you need to put out, like music or. And I also kind of feel like you need to put your face to it. Like maybe you're someone who's been putting stuff out very faceless, like hiding yourself, not showing yourself. They're like, all right, okay, Banksy, isn't that his name? Okay, Banksy, we see you, Banksy, but you're not Banksy. You're supposed to put your face to your work. You're supposed to put your face to your creations. Ace of Swords. I feel like this doesn't feel like an idea that you've just had, but they're like that idea you've had, but it's like the idea you've had, but you've been working on this idea. It's not the idea that you've just had. The idea you've been working on. Oh my God, Two of Swords again. You've been like, should I? Shouldn't I? Should I? Should I? No. And for some of you, maybe you're doing something for a job that's really like boring to you. And you're like, you know what? I know that I would rather be an artist. I know that I'd rather write. I know that I'd rather create music. I know that I'd rather be a performer. But you're like afraid of romanticizing things for yourself, I feel. You're like, oh, that's just like, I'm romanticizing things if I think that I can go and do that. Of course you can do that. It just feels like there's a limiting belief of like my career is not allowed to be fun in some way. My career is not allowed to be fun. My career is not allowed to be... Yeah, it's like... I feel like you're supposed to... Just, you know, the cliche, take a leap of faith. And really go for it. Two of Cups. You kind of feel like, am I being naive if I go for this? I feel like you'll see that naivety of it all is actually what would help you. And I'm also seeing whatever this is that you would prefer to be doing than what you're doing right now, you'd meet really nice people. You'd meet a nice community. You'd meet like-minded people who like get you and feel you and understand you on the same level. I feel like the career path that you've been taking so far, it's not like it's a terrible option for you. But I also feel like you don't necessarily super resonate with the people that this career path brings you towards. It's like these people you don't necessarily connect to in that significant sort of a way. It's quite about people, actually, for you with this group. I even feel like figuring out what career you're supposed to be, I think you know what career you'd ideally like to do. Like this really has this energy of, I want to be a performer, or I want to be a songwriter, I want to be a writer, I want to be, my heart is calling me to this, but I don't want to romanticize this, like, you know, not everyone's supposed to be like, sure, everyone wants to be a writer, everyone wants to be a performer. No, that's not true. You do, though. But it's even beyond that, because there's this feeling of, what is the type of person that you want to work with? What is the type of person that you want to interact with when it comes to your career? I feel like there's an important question there for you. So what's next in your career? You'll be pushed to do something more exciting, to push your career towards more fun. You'll be pushed to risk-taking in your career. Doing something even quite random. I said the word random multiple times, I'm pretty sure, and the fool came out, and the keyword, one of my keywords for the fool is random. They want you to get kind of random with your career. Like, imagine pressing a randomize button on your career and just seeing what happens. That's the kind of energy they want you to embrace, group 2. But also embracing the fact that you do, like, for example, you know you've always seen yourself as a writer or as a performer or as, like, you know, whatever. Maybe you've always seen yourself as a director. I don't know. Like, that came through to my noggin just now. What is that thing that you know you've always envisioned yourself as, but as you got older, you got made to feel like that wasn't a path for you. That wasn't going to be something that you could do. That wasn't going to be something that would work. Because it's silly and naive and gullible to think that you could make it in that kind of way. Consider that. That's all I have for you, group 2. I think that's all I have for your reading. But yeah, your guides are like, inject more fun into your career. You're one of those people who's supposed to have a fun career. You're supposed to have a career that's so much fun. You came on this planet in this lifetime. Your lifetime is strongly associated with a career that's fun, where you're having fun, you're having a blast. So that's what I have for you, group number 2. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. So I'm going to leave that there. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on. Okay. Moving on to group number 3. Group number 3, let's see. What's coming up in your career? Temporary situation, something temporary, temporary job for some of you. Solid foundation, success with effort. Okay, so you're kind of like slowly moving along. Changes in your life. Okay, a lot of changes today. What I'm seeing, some of you, if you've been struggling to get a job, you'll be getting a temporary job, but it's only a temporary job while you build a foundation for something else. So this kind of feels like you're going to get a temporary job. This might be like a part-time job for some of you, or just a temporary job in general. Because getting a long-term job right now, and in fact, you're kind of encouraged to look for temporary jobs rather than long-term jobs right now, because what I'm picking up on is like a long-term job would actually stifle you, whereas a temporary job, it'll be helpful to you. So your guides are wanting you to look at your career as very like, okay, I'm doing this for a couple of months and then I'm doing this for a couple of months, like very temporary energy. And there's a lot of that energy, there was a lot of that energy in all 3 groups, but like in very different ways. So it's just interesting what I'm picking up on collectively. If you wanted to watch all of the groups, you can, but you would find more success with temporary jobs right now, or like temporary projects. So if you're trying to figure out, because I'm getting for some of you, you might be offered 2 different projects in the next few months, and one of them might be temporary and the other one might be a little bit longer, like where you have to sign a contract and it's like a project for a year. and or a year or two. And then for others of you, it'll be like a temporary project that's only for like 3 to 4 to 6 months maybe. But I specifically heard 3 to 4 months. So and you might think that the year one is better to go for. You're like, well, it's more security, but in reality the more temporary one would actually suit you better. For some of you, maybe that's already in your life, so maybe that already kind of resonates. So I'm getting that message specifically for someone here. There might be two options coming up for you, and the more temporary one is actually the better version for you. Okay, let's keep moving along and see what is important to know. We've got the Knight of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles. There's this feeling that you're building, it's funny, through temporary projects or through temporary situations, you're building something that with longevity. What they're kind of showing me is what they're showing me is the temporary jobs that I feel like a lot of you in this group are about to start doing very temporary jobs. Like I'm kind of getting like a year or two of just, 3 to 4 months I'm working here and I'm doing, like, I'm getting temping, like I've done temping before where you just go in and you, like, I was a temp in a solicitor's office, and all I did was literally look after their post. I was on reception picking up phone calls and just, sending them to whatever lawyer, taking messages. It was like just secretary stuff, and I did that for 2 weeks. I just did that for 2 weeks, and it was really nice because I didn't have to worry about like staying there, and I got paid, and then I had so much free time as well where I was actually working on my on my business, on my tarot business, because I was only kind of starting it out. It was right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit. But like, this reminds me of that energy of like temping and just being like, yeah, like I'm doing 2 weeks here, I'm doing 2 weeks there, I'm doing a month here, I'm doing 3 to 4 months in this place, and just like kind of hopping from place to place. Like, I'm hopping here, and now I'm hopping here, and now I'm hopping here, and now I'm hopping here, and just kind of not worrying about that at all. Because somehow that's gonna bring you to longevity. Somehow that's gonna bring you to where you're supposed to go. And not worrying about how, because I keep hearing somehow, but you don't need to know exactly how. Just go into these I'm telling you, temporary journeys. Your career is about, or like if you're a freelancer, picking up projects that are a little bit shorter rather than long projects. If you own your own business, I don't know how this would figure. Maybe this message doesn't resonate with you if you have your own business, but this could be projects within your business, right? Maybe doing projects that are a little bit shorter in time, that take a little bit less time. But that is how you're actually building a very solid foundation for yourself. Because I feel like through these short bursts, you'll also be building skills in a very unique sort of way that you've never built skills before. Because you're actually moving towards your long-term career through these temporary situations. We've got the Sun. I think this summer, in general, if you're watching this reading in the summer, of course, if you're not, that's fine. Disregard this message. But I feel like this summer, you're supposed to embrace this temporary energy. I really feel like for a lot of you, like, temping is a really great option. The Emperor. But it's so funny because somehow that's going to bring you to your long-term job. So this kind of reminds me of like you maybe even going in and temping at a place, and you're only temping with them for like a month, but they love your work and they're like, you fit in with the team so well, and they're just like, okay, we're gonna keep group 3. and you end up staying. But that wasn't your intention. You were just doing temporary jobs. Or you freelance for a company and they love your work and the project was only 2 months. But they loved your work and they're like, we'd like to give you more work. You know? It's like, oh, we have a project coming up in, next year. We'd like you to hire you for that project. Or your business. You're doing little projects and you're like, I'll just do this temporary project this time. And then one of them just really takes off. You didn't even expect it to take off because you tried it. Because you're like, let me try this temporary thing rather than thinking what's going to work. It just works. I think out of all the groups, you feel like least resistance to me. I feel like you're actually quite happy to go with the flow. And we got the tower for you as well. I feel like I'm hearing the worst shit has already happened. Like, maybe something did hit the fan. Like, shit did hit the fan in your work life. Maybe that's something that you've already experienced where you're like, you know what? The worst shit has already happened. I feel like this is a group who has seen a lot of bullshit in their career path, in their journey. You're like, I've seen it all. Like, I'm not even afraid. I feel like there's so little fear when it comes to your career, group 3, with this group, especially compared to the other two. I honestly, not to shit talk the other two groups, group 3, especially because I wouldn't be surprised if some of you watched, multiple. But I feel like this group, I have to give you props. I don't think anything can scare you when it comes to your career, group 3. You're like, I've seen it all. You might even be the kind of person who's lost jobs, who's gotten fired, who's gotten this and that, and then ba-ba-ba-ba-dooba-dooba-dooba-dooba. Doesn't even fucking matter. You're like, I'm not, try me, bitch. Like, I think to you, there's very few things that are scary when it comes to work, when it comes to earning money, when it comes to career. You're just like, I'll figure it out. You have this very optimistic, almost like childlike thing of like, okay, yeah, I can get a job here and I can get a job here and I can get a job here. And it's literally not a biggie. Maybe you didn't always take this approach, but I definitely see you moving into this approach, especially in the summer. It's like, yeah, I'll work here. Oh, I'll work here. I'll do that. Yeah, I can work for you. Like, you might even find, like, I'm really getting a side quest kind of energy with you, group 3. It's like, you're in your side quest era when it comes to your career. You're like, yeah, like, I'll go and work in this gallery for a week, I'll pick up a shift here. I'll do this for a while, yeah, and I'll work here for a bit. No worries. Like, you're not overthinking it. You're just like, money is money, work is work, skills are skills. Whatever you end up doing, whether it's cleaning the toilets or working in a gallery or minding someone's baby or minding someone's dog, walking someone's dog, I'm picking up skills. I feel like you've been gravely disappointed in your career. I think maybe you're even coming from a place of disappointment where you're just like, I just don't give a shit anymore. I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna do this and I don't give a shit. This group, but it's almost weirdly giving you this beautiful sense of optimism, but I am sensing something with this group, something along the lines of, oh, I don't give a shit anymore. I just don't give a shit. Like, and I think this feeling of I don't give a shit, give me a cleaning job, give me a job in a supermarket, give me, like, I don't care what job I do. I don't care if I am, doing a job that is considered luxurious or if I'm doing a job that's considered dog shit. I don't care. Give me whatever. You're just in a state of, I'm really getting this strong energy of like, I've seen it all now. I've felt shitty in my career. I felt shitty in jobs. Like, you're coming to this weird place of purification. You're kind of coming full circle with your career without even realizing. And I think it's exactly this attitude in a weird sense, because it's almost this, it's funny because it's almost nihilism that leads you to optimism. It's like, when you're so nihilistic, when you go so far into nihilism, you become an optimist. When you go so far into just like everything's shit, who gives a shit, all work is work, give me this temporary job, to where you actually stumble upon something where you're like, this is good. I love doing this. This is fun. I think I want to do this for the rest of my life. You know, maybe not necessarily that, but there is something like that here within your career. So if you're resonating with that energy of, like, I just feel like my career is in shambles. I feel like, you know, if you've gotten fired, or if you've just like lost a job, or there's just been like the shit show energy that you've been feeling with your career, you're coming full circle. It's like you're coming to a point of like, okay, let's try whatever, let's try this, let's fucking try this job. Because maybe you've gotten to a point where you were only going for a certain type of job, or you were only going for a certain type of path, where the universe wanted to push you out of your comfort zone and go, you need to try something else. And I have this feeling that you're gonna try something, it's gonna be a temporary, like, I'm even getting, for some reason what's coming through is dog grooming. Like, I'm seeing someone working in a dog groomer's and being like, I fucking love this job. Like, I don't know why that's coming through. It doesn't have to be specifically dog grooming, but for someone here it might be. And it's like working in a dog grooming, but or getting an idea for a business and being like, okay, dog grooming, but what if I did this? And what if it was like a dog groomer's, but also like a doggy hotel or so? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just giving an example that is like naturally coming to me, but there's this feeling of what you're gonna do in terms of longevity when it comes to your career, and what you're actually going to create is gonna come from one of these insignificant temporary jobs. And so I feel like you have this natural pull to just be like, whatever, like, let me do this silly little job or this silly little job. Like, you're just gonna figure it, all of a sudden you're just gonna figure it out. Or you're just gonna be like, oh, wait a second, this gives me an idea, and this gives me an idea, and this gives me an idea. And it just ends up being, it ends up being like a fun game. It ends up being like a fun process for you. That purifies you, purifies your idea and understanding of what your career should be, what it should look like. And you're actually going to be very strong as a result of it, career-wise. I think this is the group where I think a lot of you are supposed to be like entrepreneurs or own a business. And I feel like this business idea is going to come to you through doing these little jobs. It's going to spark something. Or one of these jobs. And I also think this inspiration will come from the bullshit that you've experienced in your career. I feel like, especially because what I'm getting for a lot of you, I don't know if you believe this right now, or some of you, maybe you're already in this kind of space. You're supposed to be in charge of people, is what I'm getting. So it's not only that you're supposed to have a business, because some people have a business to just work for themselves and that's all. You're supposed to be someone who overlooks people, who work, and I feel like there's something that you're learning about how you want to treat your staff, how you want to treat your employees, your future. Because I would look at this reading, what I'm looking at this reading from a perspective of, this is someone who's a future boss. Like, this is someone who employs people in the future. And there's a very specific way that you want to employ people in the future. Because what I'm kind of getting is that in this reading, it's almost like your higher self or your future self is coming through, and they're saying, like, I'm an employer. I'm not an employee. Oh, I heard that I'm an employer. I'm not an employee. And I'm a good one. But it's like, in order to know how to be a good employer, you need to almost experience this employee energy. And I feel like I'm hearing speed dating, like job speed dating. You're kind of, I feel like this summer, you might be on some sort of like speed dating energy when it comes to work. If you're watching it around that time, if you're not, ignore this message. But yeah, I really got that very strongly. I'm an employer. I'm not an employee. So I think this is a group of employers. This is a group of employers. You're supposed to employ people in the future. And I think that's another thing. Go into these temporary jobs with that mentality, as if you're a future employer doing market research. That's what I'm almost getting that as a suggestion for you. I'm going into these, and I think that could make these things even more fun for you in that sort of way. I'm going in, I'm doing market research on what type of person I want to employ, why, what kind of employer I want to be. Like, that's why you're going into these jobs, to gain those kind of skills. Those are the skills that you're supposed to collect. And I feel like very quickly, it'll turn into something that's really fun and very fulfilling and very satisfactory. You're supposed to be an employer, not an employee. I think that's all. I feel like that's a big change that's happening in your life, but it's not obvious, and it's not gonna happen in this swoop. It's gonna happen through these little temporary situations, temporary jobs. So this was a very interesting reading. All the groups were so interesting, so different. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for trusting me to read your cards. And thank you for supporting me on Patreon. So I'm going to leave it here. Have the best day ever, evening, whenever you're watching this. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.